In this series of special 25 AV interviews, we'll be digging deeper into each artistic pair's collaboration and their resulting work. This time we're speaking to Netherlands-based filmmaker, creative director and artist Laila Saber Rodriguez and Apulian artist and producer Marco Caricola. So your paths first crossed when, Marco, you were doing some research for your False Supporter show on Radio Ahara, and that's how you came across Laila's work in the first place. Following on from that, you found that you had a lot of common ground between the two of you, particularly that you both have a relation to the Mediterranean, and that's at the intersection of both of your backgrounds and your cultural identities. How did this cultural connection and your mutual interest work in practice in your piece?
Yeah, Laila and I met as I was researching guests fundamentally for this podcast that I ran monthly last year. And the conversation really started. Then the relationship, I built relationship with all the guests, obviously, across the show, but the one with her was really strong, and it started to grow into a friendship. And beyond that, it started to grow into conversations about our backgrounds, which was was what started the idea of having her contributing to the podcast with her work and her perspective on issues like what it means to come from the southern area of the Mediterranean and to live in Europe and to work in the arts specifically in Europe, but also how to deal with spirituality, which is something we spoke about a lot, and how to reconnect to what essentially are the roots of the traditions of our cultures. And that's already got the wheels in motion, also due to the complementary aspect of me working with music and sound and her working with visuals primarily.
Yeah, I agree with everything. And I think also what really bonded our practices was the foundation, the questions that we were asking each other and oneself in terms of identity and displacement, and moving into another country. Both had to go to Northern Europe, for example, where we began forming our work and career, and that gesture and that action in of itself provoked a lot of questions and led to an unfolding of, I would say, like developing visual and artistic languages between the both of us. And that also, I would say, went a relation between our works that got very interesting results. And I think the film will show that.
The piece itself explores the concept of the afterlife, and with the space you've created, you hope to encourage the audience to have spiritual experiences. Are there any other thoughts or feelings that you hope it might inspire in the audience?
Yeah, beyond it being a spiritual experience, and spiritual experience for me refers to an alternative state of being and looking at the world and kind of entering a non-linear space where things happen, and it's a very like fertile ground for possibilities and meanings to come out. And that's something I hope the film will inspire, not just to have a, let's say, a transit moment, which is very pivotal in the film, but also to kind of inhabit alternative modes of narration and I would say like inhabit the hybrid or the non-human within ourselves, to explore different forms of seeing the world and telling stories in the world, and that in itself is a spiritual experience, maybe like a rebirth of sorts. So I would hope to inspire people to go into a journey of rebirth and of epic transformation, I guess.
I think also state of being is not necessarily, I think we touched specifically on this. And there's also the bit where the project really became personal, because what we put in it was really reflections and perspectives on what is our state of being, or what are our states of beings right now, or simply a reflection on how we related to that. And I think we have a tendency to really impose a concept of identity on ourselves, like one narrative that kind of carries across. And we, without spoiling too much, we use board games as an analogy to this process of like a linear sequence of moves that kind of dictates who you are and who you become. And in a game, you can kind of corner yourself. Just like in life, you can feel like you cornered yourself into a single state. And I think the core of the film really wants us to reflect on how much more multidimensional the relationship with ourselves actually can be, time-wise, but also spiritually-wise. And we hope to inspire that sort of reflection, just like personally it inspired it for myself.
Yeah, exactly. I would just lastly add something about the afterlife, that this like imaginary landscape for me is also, and in the film I think we approached it as a place where it's like a plane of possibility. So it's an indeterminate space, and then from there multiple realities form, and that through the game, the board game, every move kind of opens a sequence. And the fact that it goes on in this hypothetical space of the afterlife, it encourages also this kind of spiritual nonlinear experience.
To find out more about Marco and Laila's collaboration and watch their AV work in full, head to 25av.eu.